Right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's program is going to be Michael Boyle. He's been a member of our club for quite a long time. He's going to show us how to make a platter tonight and some nice little examples over here. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael and let him take it away.
All right, my first thing I have to tell everyone is that the procedure I'm going to use is mine and mine alone, with some input from Sue and Jimmy Clues. If you don't like the way I do it, you can do it another way. There's half a dozen ways to do any one thing, but this is the way that I do it, and I like the results I get from doing it. First thing I'm going to do is take my compass and mark the size of my mortise that I want on the bottom of my bowl. Can you see this okay, Ken? Turns out that I'm using a Vic Mark large chuck, and so I'm going to make a mortise that is 1 9/16 in radius, which is roughly 3 1/8 inches in diameter. I have a trusty little ruler that I have here, my little measuring tape, so let's see if that comes out reasonably close. I'm right at 3 inches, so I'll just be on the outside of that line. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is take my Jimmy Clues. No, this is a David Ellsworth Irish grind bowl gouge. I use this tool probably 85% of the time for everything that I do. It's such a versatile tool. And I've had an issue before where things came flying off the lathe and hit me in the head and broke my glasses and split my head open. So I'm going to be wearing a mask. If you have a question, did I get too close to something? If you have a question, don't hesitate to stop me so we can cover it. I may have to repeat the question so everybody can hear it and understand what the question was. Sometimes they just yell it out from the crowd. Everybody doesn't hear what the question is. I'm going to use this tool to make it round. I do not use a bowl or a roughing gouge to make a blank round when I'm doing a bowl, because you can tear out big chunks of wood with a roughing gouge that you won't tear out with the bowl gouge. All right, here we go. Warp factor. Remember, okay, if I keep the mask on? This is going to be warp factor 5. I don't really pay attention to the speed. I kind of listen to the way it sounds. This is around 1,300 RPM. Let's see how it cuts. I forgot to zip up. One down my shirt. This is a pretty nice cut that's going across here right now. Let's see what it looks like. Have we got it round yet? Darn, close to being round. That's pretty good. Now, the reason I cut the corners off on this because time was an issue here tonight. Normally, I just turn these square and make them round from the square blanks. But because time is an issue for doing this demo, I cut the corners off so I don't have to make so many passes to get it cut. One more pass. Notice we're not going very fast. We're just going to let the tool do the job and make it cut. I have found that when you treat it like a race, you end up losing. In fact, you don't even come in second. Okay, so that's got it round. Now we have to think about the shape. Now the shape we're going to try and get is an OG shape on the bottom. This is a problem for a lot of people. So before I start trying to do this, I'm going to get my bottom, I'm going to cut my mortise, I'm going to put a tenon and a mortise in there. The reason I do that is because some of you turners may have had this happen. You can shear off your tenon if you get a bad catch. You can shear your tenon off if you get a bad catch. If you have a mortise and a tenon, you can just remount it and put it on the mortise and still turn your bowl and probably save it. If you just have a tenon, you're in trouble. So before I start trying to do the OG shape, I'm going to form our bottom. So I'm going to switch over to my parting tool, move the tool rest. I'm not all that familiar with this lathe because I have a different one at home, but it's about the same size. What's going on here? Oh, well, that's something that's unusual. This tool rest support hits my bowl, so I got to get further away from it, which I don't particularly care for because I don't have a long tool here. First time I've seen that. I guess that's Laguna's style of doing tool rests. And I keep reaching over here because this is where my on-off switch is, but it's over here on this one. I am visually challenged, so I have trouble seeing these lines from without the light. I normally have another light on my lathe. Going the wrong way. When I do a tenon or a mortise on the lathe, I normally, I left my face shield open. Sue should have caught me on that. I normally make it 3/16, no more than a 1/4 inch deep. 3/16 I find to be plenty. 3/6 or a 1/4 is more than enough. If you make it deeper, then your bowl is going to be not as long, not as deep. Is there something wrong? All right, I've got to get more light here. This is not going to work for me. I got one here. There it is. Now, that's crap. I think so, unless you took one of my spots. I should have 3. Yeah, I want one. No. There you go. All right, that's going to be perfect for what is that going to be okay for you? You can put it up there. Okay. Okay. I need the light on this side, though. How's that going to work for you? That's too bright? Let's see if I can come underneath. That can make that work. Is that okay? All right. This is a dovetail. This is a dovetail jaws in this. So I'm going to cut a dovetail using this parting tool. If I can figure out, pardon me? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Where's Sue when I need her? Now, at home, I have another parting tool like this that I've filed at a slight angle so I can cut a dovetail by just going straight in. On this one, as I go in, I got to turn the tool so that this outside edge doesn't score the bottom of the mortise. A little bit deeper to go there. Okay, I think I've got the dovetail on the inside. Now I've got to get it on the outside. Is that going to be okay for you guys? What, did you just unplug something? I can't see what's on there now. Oh. Can you see it okay there? I'm just cutting a dovetail on the outside mortise. I'm trying to square off the bottom now. Okay, that should be okay for our mortise and tenon. It should be plenty deep enough. Oh, I see I've got a lip on the bottom of my inside tenon, so I got to clean that up. Not good. I just have to be able to see it. Oh, there it is. I didn't get it. Bang. All right, don't touch the wood unless you're ready to cut. Now, I'm going to be using the mortise primarily for this, but I wanted the tenon just in case we need it. All right, I think that's going to work. Now, the next thing I need to do is I have to define where the foot is going to be. This ring here, this outside ring, is the foot that it actually sits on so the bowl doesn't rock. So the tenon has to be below the outside ring, and that's the high spot, and that's the only spot that I need to square off and make sure it's okay. But I just need to make sure the tenon is below the outside ring so it doesn't sit on the tenon and rock. That make sense? Now, if you don't want to, I mean, you can make this so it just sits on a tenon. It's just that I like this particular shape, so I'm going to be trying to do this. I'm going to make that about 3/8 of an inch wide. And I'm just going to eyeball it. Machine on. The deal with this now is that this foot cannot be as deep as the mortise. If you make it as deep as the mortise, when you put your chuck in there and spread it, you're going to blow that mortise right out of there. So you might get no more than half the depth of your mortise. And I've gone about maybe, a little over 1/16 of an inch, and that's fine. So now I go back to my bowl gouge, and I'm going to start taking wood away to start forming the bottom. This is plenty long enough. This is more than long enough for what I need. You're used to using a bigger one. This one is fine for this. Close this, and let's try here. On. Okay, what I've done here is just gotten rid of all this wood that was on the outside of my foot. So I can see my foot so it stands proud. Now I need to square off my foot because that's what it's going to sit on. I haven't squared it off yet. I may need to make the foot a little bit deeper, but I need to square it off first and see what I got. So let's do that real quick. Oh, I forgot to ask John. What time do I got to be through, John? 9 o'clock? 8:45? Oh. I get that at home, too. Okay, the only thing I care about is the foot. So I'm barely kissing the foot right now. And that should have been enough to make it flush. And I'm going to cut it a little bit deeper with my parting tool. And I want nice crisp edges on this too. Yeah, that's going to look good. Now I'm going to use this to get rid of some of that wood. Okay, don't want to do that. I actually fell off the tool rest because I didn't turn it. I'm not trying to show you all the things you shouldn't do, but it does help. All right, I got to clean up a little lip I've got on that little foot. Let's get this thing going again here. All right, got that. Okay, now I've got to make the tenon so it's below the outside ring of the foot. And right now, where's my measuring? If I lay a flat piece across here, my tenon is actually sitting proud of the bottom. So I've got to make my tenon below the foot. I do that with a real light cut. Machine on. You can see my depth of cut is about, just a hair under a 16th maybe. And as I go into the center, I'm going a little deeper. Clean this up a little bit. I want this tenon to be concave shape. I think they're looking good there. Now I'm going to check to see if it's below my foot. And it is. Doesn't touch anywhere. Actually, I took more off than I needed to. And that's still plenty of tenon to hold it with. So I think we're good. Now we need to start forming the OG shape. A rule that Jimmy Clues says is take... one of the things that Jimmy Clues suggests is that when you start to decide how to cut your OG, is to divide the portion you're going to cut into 1/3 and 2/3. So if I measure from there, it's a little over about 2 1/8. So I'm going to just eyeball it and say, oh, probably about. All right. I'm eyeballing. Do you want to give me your eyeballs? All right, I'm going to eyeball this and say, right here is a third is to the right of that line and 2/3 is to the left of that line. Sue, you want to give me your opinion about that?
Let's see how you did. Well, it'll do.
Oh.
And, you know,
Let's get a third opinion. Holy cow, that's what I wanted. 3/4 to the right, and the rest is, it's in the neighborhood. It doesn't have to be precise, but in the neighborhood. The next thing I want to do is I want to draw a line here on the outside rim about 3/8 of an inch from the top edge. Sue, you want to give me your idea about this one? I'm not going to pull the tape measure out for this one because Sue has already told me don't use the tape measure. All right, now that's a rough idea. I got to check it. I almost, holy cow, it's 3/8. Well, I did get a high school graduate degree. All right, so that tells me I don't want, when I'm cutting this bottom, I don't want to go above my line. That's kind of my reference point. So what I'm going to do now is take the wood from the left of this line that I drew here and that line there and try to scoop that out and get an OG shape to it. So, is this light okay, Ken? Warp factor 5. Oh, that's hot. It's burning me. This is a piece of maple. Now, if you notice, I'm using my body to help form the shape here. Not a good idea to try and move the tool rest while it's running. So let's don't do that. Whoa, hot. Okay, Ken, can you see how close I am to this line here on the top? Shut this off. See, I got another, an 1/8 of an inch or so before I get to the line. And I'm starting to get my shape here on the bottom. So I want to give myself wiggle room, so I don't want to go right to that line and then say, let's get the shape. I'm going to start getting the shape now, so I've got some wiggle room, so if I need to make an adjustment, I got something to adjust for or with. Okay, I've got the beginnings of my OG shape. Now I've got to get this flat area here to kind of feather into that. So now I'm going to work on that. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. So I've pretty much got the shape I want here. I've got a little bit too much wood up in this area, so I got to take that down. So I've got to feather this flat area here into this curve, and so I got a nice curve coming around there. This is where Sue tells me a lot of people have trouble doing this because they tend to leave too much wood up here. So you got to take quite a bit off here, even though you're kind of hesitant to do that. Okay, I got too much on the point. That's where the tool kicked back on me. You got to be careful to stay off of the point. Now, I don't like to sand, so I try to get a nice clean cut without having to do a lot of sanding. Okay, I got a little high spot right in here that I need to clean up. You can feel it. Okay, got a little bit of a cleanup to do with my parting tool right up next to that foot. Sue, do you want to come give me your blessing? All right,
But I think they get the idea.
it's gone. Sue does make house calls. I think that's a little better. Can y'all see that it's got that OG shape? Oh, there's a high spot right in there. I don't want that. Thank you again. You can feel these high spots. I don't feel them now, but I could feel them before, so I kind of knew where to touch it. That feels pretty good. I'm going to give that the okay. Now, so that pretty much finishes the bottom. Now, at this point, I'd go ahead and sand, but I'm not sanding in here because I don't want to craze all kinds of dust. If I sand for 5 minutes, I've sanded a long time. Sue likes to sand, so I will bring her in and let her go at it when I get this home. She'll spend hours doing it. One of her first bowls, she sanded for 7 hours. Not continuously, but over a number of days. And she was so proud of it when she brought it in here and did the show and tell. Some idiot in the crowd said, "How long did it take you to sand that?" That could have been me. And she said, so happily, she said, "It only took me 7 hours," and everybody started laughing. So, oh, I didn't realize she was over there. Okay, so now we would go ahead and sand that and put a finish on it, whatever finish of your choice is. I think that's pretty good from the feel. I will start at 120, 150, 180, 220, and then I'm done. All right, so we got to take this off of the screw now. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. Come on. Each one of these lathes is a little bit different on how you stop them. You see, that's how much screw I had in there. That's all I needed to hold this. All this stuff here was just spacers I put on there to eat up the screw, so I didn't have that much screw going. The screw hole that I drilled was only 5/8 of an inch deep. So I couldn't have a screw that was 2 inches or 1.5 inches long going in there because it would never get up against the jaws. So I used spacers like this to do that. Somebody was asking me earlier about what's that piece of plastic you got sitting on there? That's to keep my metal chuck from binding against the metal of the spindle. Because if you get a bad catch on a bowl out here, it jams your chuck onto the spindle. And if it's metal against metal, you might have to use a hammer to get it free. And I've actually had to do that before, so I started making those, and that solved the problem of it binding, because it gives it a little bit of a cushion. And actually, they sell a little ring for $2 or $3 that you can put on there that does the same thing, but I just make my own. Okay, I'm going to see about trying to get this mounted. Hopefully I cut the tenon the right size, or the recess. Let's see, which way does this thing go? I've got a number of different chucks at home so that each one, Nova especially, goes the opposite of what you expect it to. And Vic Mark goes the same way that One Way does. I don't have this open far enough. So I'm going to switch over to another one that I do have the right size. That's what they call being prepared. Now, when you put this on, you want to have just the pressure in the screw hole because you don't want that to be cattywampus when you tighten it down. I'm going to... Now, I'm spreading because I think you get a better grip by spreading because you got more surface area holding your piece. Now, I don't plan to have a bad catch on this side, but if you have a bad catch, more surface area is going to help you a little bit. But you can tear this off of the chuck and tear up your mortise. And I've seen that happen a time or two. Now, the next part we got to do here is decide how big is our bowl going to be. Because I want to have a little lip here, and I also want to give it this slight curve. Because when you hold it, your thumbs tend to want to run inside. If it's flat straight across, it just doesn't feel right. And that's a Jimmy Clues trick. So I'm going to use my parting tool to kind of give me a rough idea of, and Sue, I'm going to eyeball this too. Yeah, that's what I'm using. Warp factor 5 coming up. It's 1,430. All right, I'm going to go higher. I'm at 2,000, 2,300. I like to turn faster because I'm just like Jimmy Clues. It just cuts better. Thank you. Now, this is just a reference. I'm not, I may not have it that wide. That's just going to give me a reference. So I'm going to start to chew this out. You see that okay, Ken? Now, I don't want to go any much deeper than the depth of my screw hole, which is about 5/8 of an inch. I might go just a tad bit more, just so I don't have a little dimple right on the bottom there. Remember, this is just a shallow bowl. All right, I'm at the bottom of the hole right now. Are we doing okay time-wise? I don't know. We are? Oh, okay. All right. So now I need to decide how wide I want this to be. On. So I'm eyeballing this again. I need my pencil. Where's my pencil? There it is. What I'm doing here is I kind of made a mark saying that's the inside of my lip or my curve, and I'm going to kind of find the center of that. It's about here, because I want that to stay as my high point. If I can get this pencil to stay still. This pencil's been drinking. Now I'm going to curve the outside down, hopefully to this line down here, so that's why I needed wood on the edge here. The inside is going to come up to this high point, so I'm going to have a little hump right there. And we're going to try and put this little lip on it for a bowl to mark the bowl. That's something that I like to do. Let's see if that is going to work on here. Okay, I'm coming right up to the center. Now I'm going to come over here on the other side. Got to move this tool rest and change the angle. Okay, that's got a pretty good feel to it. So now, this wire's starting to come around here. Can you fix me up? Oh, it'll brush off and just want to. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I've got my hump that I want, and now I'm going to form the bowl portion of this thing. Is this going to be in your way? It's okay there. I need to get around here. Okay, and what's hitting? It's this thing again. I'm not wild about Laguna's design for their tool rest. We are almost there. All right, I think that's about it. Well, that made a mess, didn't it? The only other thing that I would do on this besides the sanding is I would use a scraper. I raise the tool rest slightly above center. Let me get my scraper out. I wouldn't use this size because it's on the small side, but it'll do the job. I find that when I use this scraper, my sanding is almost eliminated. Sue, did you get that? Yeah, you gotta have a light touch, otherwise you'll get a catch or a grab. And a little bit in the center here. I'll do another one for you. Well, that's pretty much all there is to it. Any questions? Every platter that we make, we serve, M&M. M&Ms. Yeah. Every bowl that I make is an M&M bowl. Now, the only other thing is that this outside rim here hasn't been cleaned up because it never got touched, and I didn't bring these together so they touched. So I'm going to touch that up very slightly with my tool of choice, which would be the bowl gouge, and just lightly kiss that. Oh, I see some marks there too. See if I can clean those out of there. At some point, you got to say, okay, sandpaper has to do the rest. Otherwise, you take a chance on getting a catch and tearing a chunk of wood out. Yeah. Plus, I got to leave something for Sue to work on. Now, let me take this out of here so you can, if you want, we can pass this around so you can give me your expert opinion on what do you think took place. Here, pass that around. Now it is a little heavy. Sue likes to use pieces of wood that are, just an inch and a quarter thick. We could have made that thinner by taking more wood off the bottom before we cut our foot and our recess. I personally like to have a little bit of weight on the bottom so that when you set it down, it doesn't easily rock back and forth on you when you put stuff in it. Because I put so much candy in it that if it's too heavy or too light, it'll just tilt. And it doesn't look right sitting on the table. So I have to go eat the candy to make it balanced again. Any questions? I was trying to spread it, and I made my tenon too wide so the jaws wouldn't open wide enough. If I'd have clamped down on it, I could have done it. But I thought there's no sense in messing with it that way. I'll do that when I get home. But that's the only thing that was different, and that's why I prefer to cut a tenon and a recess, so that you got two choices, just in case you screw up on one, or you tear one out. Now, in that case, I only have one choice, unless I change my jaws on my chuck to be a bigger set of jaws. And I could do that, because I've got chucks at home where I could do that. I couldn't do it on this one, because I don't, well, maybe I could. I've got another set of jaws for this one. I think it might open a little bit wider. We've got a number of different chucks, and we kind of play around with. When we mount a piece, if we don't finish it, we leave it on the chuck, because if you take it off, you may lose your center when you remount it. So we just leave it on the chuck, take the chuck off and the piece, and set it aside, put another chuck on, and do another piece. And oh yeah. Yeah, because the wood might, especially if it's green wood, it might change shape on you a little bit. And so always tighten it up, put it back on there and tighten it up and make sure that it's still nice and snug. Also, it's a possibility that if it does change shape, it's not round anymore. So you got to be careful that you don't cut it down to the final shape and thickness, leave it sit overnight, and it changes shape on you. You come back the next day, you can't touch it with your tool because you'll cut one side and it doesn't cut the other side, so it's going to be oblong or unusual shape. So you just got to be aware of those kind of things. I generally don't do that. If I'm doing a piece, I finish it when I start. It might take me an hour or two or more, but I try to get it done so that if it does change shape, it's not going to affect anything. It's just that's going to be the way it is. But I personally don't like to do much with green wood because it makes a mess. It paints the ceiling with water or whatever comes flying out of it, and sometimes you get a few bugs. That's why you always want to wear a face shield and keep your mouth shut. Yeah, and keep some condiments nearby. Well, hopefully that was helpful for people, and you'll be able to go home and try that. It's just turning a bowl, basically. The big deal with that is getting the shape on the bottom. And you can do umpteen different shapes. But that's a shape that Jimmy Clues likes and Sue likes it, and she's convinced me that they should all look that way, so I'm trying to perfect that also. And I'm getting better at it, but I'm not as good as she is. Let me say this, that